Hello everyone and welcome back to I and Nagash channel dedicated to Sigmar, and in this video we are going to be joined by Luc as we talk about why start Chaos Dwarfs / Legion of Azgorh. I think I'm pronouncing correctly, as Luc has just started collecting the army with a fair bit of collection. So Luc, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you, and thanks for having me on the show today.
You're very sorry, I was going to say you're very welcome to be here. Thank you very much for coming, and what we're going to do is essentially going to talk through their strengths and weaknesses. But so firstly, just so everyone's aware, the reason I call them Chaos Dwarfs because not everyone's fully aware they're Legion of Azgorh. Right now, me and Luc kind of agreed on that. And so, Luc, who are the Legion of Azgorh / Chaos Dwarfs?
Well, the Legion of Azgorh, also known as the Chaos Dwarfs, also known to some as the Top Hat Dwarfs, if you harken back to the old original models. They're a very much classic Chaos Force from very much the bygone years of even sort of the late Warhammer Fantasy. They harken back to when almost all the models were metal and everything tried to fall apart. Their classic lore, sort of back in the old world, they were in the sort of southern dark lands of the old world where they garrisoned the bleak and foreboding Black Fortress. But after, the old world died away and they brought in the new age of Sigmar, they've moved into the realm of Ashki. I can never pronounce the fire realm properly.
I'm going to go with that. That sounds fine.
Yeah. They've slightly changed in their army dynamic as well. It used to be you had sort of a core of hardy chaos tainted dwarves with a lot of enslaved hobgoblins, whereas they've now gone for a more pure dwarf army with superior demon fueled siege engines to smite down the defenses of anyone who stands in their way.
Very cool. And it's, well, almost the opposite, aren't they, of the standard dwarves we would like to think about. You can actually have essentially evil top hat chaos dwarves in Age of Sigmar, which is always cool. And so
yeah, it's sort of one of those old school armies that are still kicking around.
Yeah. And so what attracted you to the army then, Luc?
It's first attracting to them because it's just something different. They have such a lovely range of models that strike sort of a nice balance between sort of your slow moving infantry, a large amount of artillery, which is quite unusual with sort of a lot of the Age of Sigmar forces now. And, they've also got some just outstanding character models. I know some people won't agree with with me enjoying the aesthetic of the new models. A lot of people prefer the old classic top hat sporting dwarfs, but I think that Forge World and sort of the designers out there did some really good job and sort of taking what is very characteristically, you can tell it's a dwarf, but putting chaos tints on it.
I would full-heartedly agree with you with that statement. I mean, like, some people may disagree, but for example, on the screen now, you'll be able to see on the top right of it, I know you can't see it, Luc, but people who are watching this, we have some of the newer dwarfs. Which are the newer chaos dwarfs with the shooting guns? What are they called again?
The Fireglaves.
So we've got some Fireglaves here, which are the newer models. And then I'll show you like the older models that appear to be Fireglaves. And they look a lot older if they are Fireglaves at all.
They're the ones with the big almost trumpet guns.
That's it. And
blunderbusses, yeah.
And if you prefer those models, absolutely fine. You go with the models you like. That's fine. For me personally, though, I think the main reason why people would prefer the old models is mainly for nostalgia purposes.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Which is cool. But yeah, so there are newer models for them. It's a little bit funny because when I was trying to find some artwork to show for you guys while we're talking about them in this video, all the artwork for the Chaos Dwarves, there's not much of it, but all the artwork is quite old, so that's why I'm just recycling through pictures on Google Images of the newer models, because the newer models do more justice to the army than the old artwork. But no,
definitely.
And like you say, they look like dwarves, but they do have that chaos element to them. Spiky, essentially.
Spiky dwarfs.
Yeah, exactly. So that's cool. And what would you say the army is like on the table then, Luc?
So, from the little I've got to play with so far, as you said earlier, I'm still sort of in the early stages of setting everything up. I only have a sort of relatively small force. They are really strong in ways that people don't expect. So they have one of my favorite rules for them is so I don't know if you've ever played any games in the realm of fire, but you get the rule of burning skies, to which for anyone who doesn't know, in the movement phase, if an enemy unit that can fly moves more than 6 inches, roll a dice. On a 4+, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound, and on a 6+, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. And it's one of those that, if you're just playing as them, that is automatically a force all the time. And people will say, if you're playing everything flies, people try and rush down the board to you, and they're just taking mortal wounds in the movement phase. And it's just things like that where you're like, people don't know what they're facing. So I think that is one of their largest strengths, is that they're so rarely played by people, that one of your strengths of playing them is that people just have very little idea of what they're facing against.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, you've got strong infantry. There's sort of 2 main battle line options. There is a third if you take a certain lord as your hero. Sorry, a certain lord as your general. But yeah, your 2 main infantry is what's known as the Iron Swarm, which are the guys with shields and axes. And then you've also, as we were talking about earlier, you've got the Fire Glaives, which are sort of a bit like the sort of old world dwarven gunners, but they hit a little harder. Yeah, one sec, let me get the rules. I did have the rules here a second ago for them.
What's this for the Fire Glaives?
Yeah.
Let's see what we can get.
There we go. But yeah, the 16-inch range, 1 attack, 4+ to hit, 4+ to win, -1 rend. But if you don't move them, then for every roll of a 6, it's an extra mortal wound on top of your damage, and you can re-roll ones for attacks for your shooting phase with them. So it's just as a gun line that does it. If you just keep it back, keep it as a solid gun line, anything that's charging towards you is going to get shot to pieces.
Yeah, and that, like I say, that -1 rend really does make a huge difference with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's not that great against things like Nighthaunt where they're ignoring rend, but it all adds up. And I think something that a lot of people don't realize is with all their armor, which is black shard armor, it ignores the first wound that's dealt to a unit. So if you're and that's including mortal wounds as well. So units in combat, units being shot at, the first wound that goes through to them is ignored. So even if it's such and such has happened, and it deals 1 mortal wound to all the units around it, they'll ignore that mortal wound because of the black shard armor.
And is that in there, unless I'm being a bit thick, is that in their Legion abilities? I can't see that like on the Infernal.
Yeah, it's under the battle traits. It's the black shard armor. The first wound that is allocated to each unit with this battle trait in each will sort of in each shooting phase and each combat phase is negated. So the first wound always issued to each unit will be ignored, basically.
Cool, that's great. So just anyone, yeah. I was just going to say, in case anyone's like following this and they're on like the War Scrolls and they're saying they can't see that, it is on their Legion abilities, like Luc just pointed out, and that is free to download as well. I imagine their Legion abilities.
Yeah. So that's another one of their great strengths, is that you don't need to go out and buy a battle tome. The compendium is completely free to download from the 412 website.
I'm sure that makes up for some of the other price costs this time costs.
Yes, that's
every little helps. Every little helps. I won't say no. So that's cool. So correct me wrong. So sort of like how they play on the table, or how you're sort of building your army to play to its strengths, is you think it's a shooting heavy army. Is that fair to say? Would you?
Particularly if you run it with it's got a lot of artillery, which, as I was saying, you don't get a lot of in Age of Sigmar anymore. You used to have a lot in the old world with sort of the Empire and the Dwarfs, but I feel you don't really get to utilize a lot of that anymore. Whereas they've got three different artillery units. You've got the Dreadweight Mortar, which can basically hit anything on a battlefield. You've got the Deathstreaker Cannon, which is sort of a rocket launcher of sorts, a bit like the old Empire rocket launcher gun. And then, sort of, in my opinion, the best one, which is the Magma Cannon, which
that's the mortal wounding one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the mortal wounding one, and it is just ridiculous the amount of damage that thing deals out.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but so I fought against Chaos Dwarfs, Legion of Asgore only once, and that was against Ben Curry at Warhammer World, and I happened to be on Warhammer TV, and I basically Ben was very kind to give me a new arsehole at the end of it. So I learned very hard what these Magma Cannons can do, because correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it something like they fire on a 4-up, and then whatever that dice result was, if it was a 4 or more, was how many mortal wounds they do to you? Is it something like that? Is that wrong? Is that right?
So I've got it up here. Do not use the attack sequence for an attack made with a Magma Blast. Instead, roll a dice and add one to the target if the target unit has more than one. On a 3+, a target unit suffers a mortal wound equal to the roll. So yeah, a number. If you get a 3+ to hit, basically, and anything above that 3+ is how many mortal wounds you deal to that unit.
So for me, I read this and I think it's great. Would you take 2 of these in an army? So you've almost got like a guarantee one of them's going to go off.
Yeah, I run 2 Magma Cannons and then with what would be a Iron Demon War Engine, because basically you just create an artillery train, and that's the one that can actually hook them up and move them around, basically, because the Magma Cannon has a 3-inch move, so you're not getting it anywhere quickly.
Yeah, it's not.
Which on the whole, you don't try to move artillery, but sometimes you need to get closer, try and hit something, because it's only got an 18-inch range, so you can hook it up to sort of the Iron Demon War Engine and run it down the field and redeploy your artillery.
So it's got a threat range of 21 because of the movement, but if you've got the Demon Smith nearby within 3 inches of it, you're going to add another 6 inches to it, aren't you, the movement? That's why the range.
Yeah, so you can sort of buff it up, particularly if you have your Demon Smith in between the 2 of them. And sort of just moving, you have basically a mobile artillery sort of set centre.
Because if they are, I was
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, if they are moving with that in mind, because they get no minuses if they move, do they? Like it's not like
if you move them, you don't have. There's no setting up time or deploying. Yeah. You can move them and then fire as well. So
a 27-inch threat range, which isn't bad. Which almost
not for an artillery piece, no.
And also makes me think. Well, if you take, I mean, he might be an auto include anywhere in the army, but especially if you're taking like Magma Cannons, the Demon Smith definitely feels like an auto include in that.
Yeah, you should always be using him anyway, because he's basically your only ability to take a actual spellcaster, unless you start allying in things from other armies. But yeah,
that's cool. And then, so we talked about that they're pretty good at sort of shooting and not too bad at sitting back and shooting because of the range of their capabilities. And if you've got things like your Infernal Guard, like the Fire Glaives, they can, like ignore the first wound, all that with a black shard armor, what it's called.
Yeah.
So not bad at standing and shooting. But let's say you want to have a bit of a mixture between shooting and combat. Would you say that's viable, or is it mainly go with shooting? Or if you're not going to go shooting, then take bull centaurs and down that way?
Yeah, so the Iron Sworn, sort of your axe and shield guys, are perfectly good in combat as well. They're a really good sort of hard line to try and defend yourself if you're going for the fallback, but you can also sort of bring them in, get them in close and start doing combat. Their shields is fantastic because on an unmodified save roll of a 6, so if you're saving, you bounce back a mortal wound. So that's always helpful if you're saving your unit, dealing damage to them. But if you wanted to go down the more sort of speedy route of getting in and to them start hammering in sort of like a Khorne Berserker or something, then you do have the bull centaurs. It's a lot of people debate over those. Sort of if you play Chaos Dwarfs, I think they're very good for their speed and very good at their attacks. but I do find them to be a little bit on the pricey end for points.
Yeah.
It is certainly viable to run them, and you can use them very well. They're very effective in combat. They will hit like a ton of bricks, particularly if you've got them with, their hero, the Torok, or even Shagor, which is the. That's not Shagor. That's the Dragon Ogre, isn't it? Shagor.
You got. I'm going to cheat because I'm looking at this thing now. So you got Shartor,
yeah. So you've got him, and you got the Taruk, which are the two sort of HQ choices for your centaurs. But yeah, the bull centaurs, like, they will come in and absolutely smash. They do fantastic amounts of damage and stuff. It's just
how many points are they?
Let me get the.
Are they like 160, 180?
I think they're a little more than 180.
Like 200. The only reason.
So for 3 of them, it's 180.
Okay,
you can run them up into units of 12, but that's 640 points for 12 of them. So,
well, there you go. And it's one of those things where, in sort of retrospect, when it comes to is a unit, good, like bull centaurs are good. I think personally they look awesome as well as models.
They're a gorgeous model. Yeah. Fantastic dynamic posing on them and stuff as well. But
I mean, if anyone's seen my Stated Art and Slanesh army, people know that I love Greek mythology and that sort of, like Centaur, Minotaurs, and just combining both of them, it's just awesome for me. And that would be one of the models that would draw me towards the army. And then when it comes down to are they actually good, like you've just explained, Luke, it's one of those things where they are good, that they're solid, but how, as any game system works, when you start comparing these guys for I think they're 20 points more than a unit of Moser Guard, and then you start. So it's essentially, separately on their own, they are good, and points is only relative compared to how many other things. Are these guys too expensive for their points, or are things like Moser Guard maybe a bit too cheap for their point? In all that sort of respect, they're not. I think you said it in a good way. They maybe are a bit pricey compared to the other units out there for points, but they're not a bad unit.
Oh no, in no way are they a bad unit. And if you're wanting to run down the running a bull centaur army, then they're fantastic because you're going to balance yourself around the points that you're having to work with. I think it's one of those that if you're wanting to mix it in with Fireglaives, Ironsworn, you're going to get more models on the table and more out of them, going with the sort of Infernal Guard ones. And if you're trying to include artillery, which isn't exactly the cheapest thing in points either, then you're starting to find that the bull centaur, for the number of sort of the amount you're getting out of the unit, isn't going to weigh up against some of the other stuff you're going to be able to deploy for simpler or only slightly more points. I think that's where I sometimes fall with the more centaurs, is that they're fantastic, but I feel like they're very much more of a unit you're wanting to run as a bull centaur army rather than in conjunction with some of the other stuff in the Chaos Dwarf forces.
Yes. I think that sounds quite straightforward, how you explained it. What I would also say with them, especially people looking through the army, it does mean that, not that Legion of Azgorh or Chaos Dwarfs, not that they are essentially a horde army anyway, but if you wanted to take the army in a very elite form with a low model count, because of you personally prefer to paint less models, which I completely understand, that sort of thing, I'm similar to the same, you can take this army in an elite format by making these guys battle line if you take basically the Bull Centaur hero as the general.
Yeah.
So that is that. And then so sort of we've already been talking about this. But if we were to just go through the model range, because as you can probably tell by now, it is of course a Forge World army, which we'll get to some reasons about it being a Forge World army later. However, for Forge World, and in particular being an army, it's got not a bad amount of unit options, has it?
So there's 13 different units, or 13 or 14 different units that you're... 14 units you're able to run, 13 you're able to buy.
Yeah, is that because the Death Shrieker rocket launcher, if I'm on the website now, it says sold out, is that...
So actually, no, it's 12 that are available to
Oh,
buy.
12, okay.
There was
The train?
a alternative to the Iron Demon War engine called Skullcracker engine, which was basically a melee counterpart to that. And Forge World had one mold for that, and it broke.
Ah.
They didn't remake it, so they're not making them again.
So is that the thing that had like loads of spiky wheels in it that span around?
Spiky wheels, tips coming out the front. Yeah,
I got hit by that. It hurts a lot.
I've heard. Yeah, you have to get quite creative with conversions if you wanted to make one of those these days.
Exactly, and I'm sure there's probably a third-party retailer who will make something similar. But obviously, just bear in mind with GW events, probably not allowed. But you can get creative. Exactly, and with
there's someone who's done a fantastic one where they've taken a gargantuan and like got all sorts of different chaos scenery, like walls and stuff, and they've slowly turned that into a skull cracker, and it's been a really interesting design on that.
That's cool. And all you need to do is go onto Google or anything. Just go, if you need inspiration, go onto Google Images and just type it in, and then you'll get loads of pictures of the traditional one, but then you'll probably see some conversions. I imagine like practically every army out there for Age of Sigmar, there is a Facebook page for Chaos Dwarfs, I imagine.
Yes, there is. I'm on it. So
fantastic. I imagine just put a question on there saying, "Hi guys, really like the Skullcracker." It's called. Yeah, I really like the Skullcracker. Unfortunately, it's not made anymore. Has anyone done any conversions? I'm sure you'll see one or two. Is its rule still in play?
There's plenty of photos on that page as well of people converting Skullcrackers. It's quite a common topic of conversation on there. So yeah.
Cool. Is it still a legal unit?
Yes, it is. It is still completely usable.
What I'd say is it may not be usable too far into the future, because if Games Workshop are not going to make any money from it, they may discontinue it. I'm only basing that off previous things we've seen.
The only thing I might say in opposed to that is they have made Chaos Dwarves into one of the Warhammer Legacy armies.
Yep.
So I know that with that, the idea behind it was that the rules aren't going to change. Well, they say. I still reckon at some point down the line they may readdress it, but
yeah.
So the rules are staying the same with everything. They're not going to change, which is a nice sort of bonus for people that, if you learn the army, learn the rules, you're not going to have to relearn when everything changes on the next battle tome comes out, because there won't be another one coming. It's just both a strength and a weakness, I guess. But yeah,
it's nice. I mean, like if we were to look at a polar opposite to this army in terms of updates and rules and all that, we'd look at Stormcasts, as like they get a battle tome. We will joke they get like a battle tome like once a year. It's practically, I think they've had like 4 at least since the start of Age of Sigmar. And as a Death player, and before Death has been absolutely spoiled now releases. Not going to say it hasn't, but but it waited a long time for those releases. And in the meantime, when I was waiting for essentially the Legions of Nagash book to come out, I'd be like saying, "Oh, it's not fair. Stormcast get loads of releases and all that sort of thing." And a Stormcast player, I think he is subscribed to, so I probably just can't remember your name, but he said, to be fair, he almost wished he had it the opposite way round, because every time he would build an army around a book, by the time he got that army built and he play tested enough games, it'd be a year later, and then there'd be another book. And then there'd be new models to buy, and then his Liberators wouldn't be very good, because now, like, Secretors are the better version. And then he's got, like, this really old army, which he ended up selling his Stormcast, because he just couldn't keep up all the time. So there are good points, like you're saying, about your army not being updated continuously.
You just hit some problems, and sort of when you get shifts in meta and the changes with sort of even sort of things that you can do. For example, they don't have, and they're not going to get endless spells, sort of faction focused ones. So they still have access to the other endless spells, but you haven't got any that are specifically designed to help sort of this army and stuff.
What about the fire ones? Do they help at all?
What, the Realm of Fire ones?
Yeah.
I mean, you can take those and stuff. Yeah, you could take those and whatnot. They would be help, but it's not like, when you've got the Beastmen's focused ones for the Beastmen, or with the Flesh Eater Corps, you've got these sort of the carrion horses and everything. You're not going to get faction focused ones that are going to sort of be specifically designed to help your force.
Yeah,
so
that is true. but we'll go into this a bit later. But obviously, the prices of Forge World is quite good that your meta for that army is not going to shift and change, because most people would find it hard to do this army and another army, shall we say, and then everyone would find it hard to do this army if it's like now suddenly Fireclaves aren't very good. No, you need to buy loads of Bull Centaurs. Like it'd be hard. But anyway, so like talking about the model range, we said so we've got like we've already essentially talked about this, but we've got artillery, we've got infantry, which are shooting and combat versions. Essentially, they've got a gun or they've got an axe with a shield. Yeah. We've got your cavalry, your Bull Centaurs.
Yeah, and then you've got the Kadai Fireborn, which is sort of
always forget
about this. I've not got them yet. I'm waiting to pick them up next, actually. They're a very odd unit because they sort of don't, theme-wise, they don't really fit with either because they look so different.
They look very cool, though.
Oh, they look fantastic, and I can't wait to paint them. They're creations done by Demon Smiths, where they sort of mold chaos-tainted metal from demon engines with sort of fire and magma and stuff. And they have a lot of rules that's based around being in combat. They're definitely a combat-based focused unit.
And they're not slow either, are they?
They're not. No, they move. Is it 12 or 24? I can't.
8 inches.
Remember. Is it 8? Oh, must have been something else I was looking at.
They're
not too slow. And they've got a lot of rules about when you sort of them being around. If you're around them, you just take heat damage and stuff from there. Again, I've got to get the rules. It's one of these. I have not run them yet, so I don't remember them off the top of my head.
Kiss of Fire. So at the end of the combat phase, roll 1 dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of them. On a 2+, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. It's only 1 mortal wound, but every unit within 3 inches, and on a 2+ rather than a 3 or a 4. So that is.
It's pretty much guaranteed to go off most of the time for that. And it's certainly probably going to give you bonuses towards if you try and deal damage to make a unit run or something. Another model gone's always going to help.
Exactly, and these days some armies can just flat out ignore battle shot, but some armies have to then do Inspiring Presence, and people these days say, well, the battle shot phase isn't as important as it used to be, which is true, but you're still making that enemy waste that command point. Something else just to say about these guys, but you're saying about they're quite fast, I've got the Warscroll up in the moment, is like, when you said they're fast, and I said, well, they move 8 inches, they can run and still charge, so they are effectively like movement 11. So
and they fly as well, so you're able to move them over units, move through cover, move through terrain and stuff.
And they're ethereal as well. So
yes,
they always have a 5-up save, and then their attacks are good because they've got 5 attacks.
3+4. And then 4+, yeah.
Yeah, and then D3 damage. The only problem, no rend, but most things don't. A great little thing about this attack that most people might miss at first glance: 3-inch range.
Yeah.
So you can screen these guys if you need to. They can still hit over.
But yeah, they're still going to hit sort of everything. You're going to get a lot more models in range of combat, so you can't just pick out the ones in front to stop them being able to attack because they're just going to keep hitting backwards.
Exactly, and the typical sort of thing that I see a lot is obviously how screens work and bubble wrap units. You've got, you've got a basic infantry unit screening a elite unit, and what you do is you have that elite unit just behind that basic infantry unit, so when that basic infantry unit gets charged and killed, that elite unit is within 3 inches of whatever the enemy charged you with, and then they pile in an attack unharmed, and then they'll attack the enemy at full strength. If you do it with these guys, they will just lean over and 3-inch range kill those, because 3-inch range is the combat range.
So yeah, no, they're fantastic for sort of dealing with screens and trying to hit the stuff that you're actually trying to go after.
Yeah, exactly. And then so we sort of covered most of the other things like shooting. We talked about the magma cannon. If we have a quick look at the talking about the Iron Demon war engine, is that as good as the magma cannon? Is that what are your thoughts?
It's It's not as good at shooting as the magma cannon. It still does a good amount of damage. But you're going to get more out of your magma cannon, but you need this to be able to move your cannons. More certainly move them more than 3 inches. So it's very good because also you find a lot of people see this and they'll attack this before they attack the cannons, just because they're trying to prevent you from being able to move. So it's almost sort of a screen, not quite screening unit, but in that same vein that
it's quite big as well, though, isn't it?
And sorry,
I was gonna say it's quite a big, isn't it? It's quite an imposing target for your opponent too.
And it's not terrible in combat either. You get at base level with no damage on it, you get 6 attacks, 4+ to hit, 4+ to wound, and 2 damage. So you know, up to 12 damage.
Yeah, that is good. It can hold its own, because a lot of time you bog these like shooting units in combat could go, right, okay, I bogged that down, it can't shoot out now. Well, with this, it might kill whatever you try to bog it down with. So a 3-up save with it is pretty cool. So in summary, with the Iron Demon War Engine, our thoughts are the Magma Cannon, like 4 out of 5 times it's going to be better, but the Demon War Engine, it's nothing to just dismiss. It's worth having a look about. If you can get in your army, fit it in there.
Because we're 14-inch range, 2d6 attacks as well. It's certainly still going to be very useful. It's one of those that I'd say if you're looking at taking artillery in your Chaos Dwarf army, it's almost in sort of a must-have alongside a Demon Smith for me.
Yeah, 11 wounds as well. It's a very survivable piece. Cool. Yeah. So with that, so like I said, we sort of talked about the other ones. Just to mention a few heroes now, really. So we talked about the Demon Smiths, like we said, include them essentially. How many would you have in your army? Obviously, depending on the rest of your units.
Depends on the rest of your units. Because I'm only running sort of 2 magma cannons, my plan is only to have 1. I know some people who like to take 2 to 3. It depends how reliant you're also going to want to be on spells, because, as I said, it is basically bar Drazov the Ashen, which we'll get to in a minute, is basically they are basically your only spellcasters for the army, really. They have Fireball and Ash Storm are the basic 2 spells that they know. You can then, of course, also take Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and stuff like that. But no, they are very useful. But I'd say how many you want to take really depends on how much artillery you're planning on.
Okay.
Fielding in the army.
And then if we move on to like the next thing, sort of building up the Bull Center Torok. I've heard people say good things about him. What are your thoughts?
Very good in the sense that he's a cheaper version of Chateau. You're still getting, I mean, he's nowhere near the number of sort of the amount of damage he can deal out, but he can still give good command ability. He's still a lot cheaper sort of HQ that you can take when you're trying to fill out HQ slots. And he is, still pretty fast. 7-inch move with 7 wounds. He can sort of get down there and really get in on the attacks. I mean, he's got his great weapon, which is 5 attacks at 3+, 3+, and -2 rend with 2 damage. 3 damage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. That's
and then he's
solid.
Still got his hooves as well, which is at a further 3 attacks. He's going to charge in and absolutely wreck. And he's fantastic if you do have other Bull Centaurs with him. Just because you're going to trample into anything. And it's very good sort of if you have them on a flank, if you will. So sort of your ideal, really, if you wanted to run them, would be have sort of probably 2 Turks, a Shautor, and then sort of fill out the rest with Bull Centaurs. And you're going to get down the field really quickly, smash into stuff, and you're just going to deal out so much damage that it's going to be very hard to try and shrug that off.
And what I would say is that your opponent unless they fought against this before, they're fully updated with the rules and all that sort of thing. Like for me, I would underestimate this model. I mean, I did underestimate this model, like just the potential damage output it can do. Because it's a big looking model, but like 5 attacks. I would think it would be 5 attacks with a -1 rend 2 damage, not -2 and 3. I think when I got attacked by it, I think it single-handedly took down a Terrorgeist. So they are. It is a good unit. And how many points is it? Can you remember?
Off the top of my head, one sec. I'll just get that up.
Yeah,
for you.
That's fine.
Scroll down. Yeah, because also if you charge, then the crushing hooves you get +1 to your charge, and your crushing hooves is doing D3 damage rather than just 1. So it's doing even more damage on the charge. It's 160 points.
Yeah, it's
not terrible.
It's not a lot, is it?
No, your Demon Smith is your cheapest sort of HQ leader you can take at 100 points, along with the Battle Standard Bearer as well.
Cool.
But yeah, he's still, for what you're getting out of him with his combat potential, he's a fantastic HQ to take.
Cool. And then one of my favourite models from the whole range for the Legion of Azgorh has got to be Shartul, the Executioner. What are our thoughts on him?
He is, I mean, as you say, as a model, he is so imposing. Just the size of it is insane.
It's like, if you can see it now on the screen, there's a picture of, like, from Forge World of him standing next to a normal, not a Fireglaive, what are the ones with axes called?
Iron Sworn.
There's one next to him, just an Iron Sworn, and the Iron Sworn's literally just towards the rock that this guy is standing on.
It's absolutely massive. I don't have one, and he's not in my list, but I'm considering picking one up just for the build and the paint. Because he's just a model I want to have on my shelf.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have the army, but like if I was going to Forge World and I wanted to buy something, I'd be tempted.
Yes. But sort of as far as tabletop on there, he works very well with other centaurs. His command abilities and stuff are focused around him working with other bull centaurs. But yeah, I'd say he's fantastic if you're running him with other centaurs. Definitely. I'm not sure he's going to be everything you're looking for in a command if you're running him with more of an artillery and infantry list, because he's going to rush down the field ahead of everything, and you're not going to be the fastest way to get there to support him with anything. I mean, he's 8 wounds and he's going to deal out a lot of damage, but he'll still need support, which is where the other sort of centaurs come in, because they're going to be keeping up with him. So yeah, he's a fantastic unit, looks good, really strong. But I'd say he's definitely one you want to run with other bull centaurs rather than running it with more of an artillery or infantry-based army.
Yeah, if you're taking him outside of that is, you're mainly taking him just for his just the fact that he looks cool. I mean, like you say, his Dark Tide Axe, it's like the same as the normal Bull Centaur hero, what we just talked about.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And how many points is this guy?
He is... I just had it up. So I've got the thing open on my phone. Every time I go off a page, it has to reload the page.
No worries at all.
He is 220.
And the
points.
Standard one was 160?
160. I'd say you're going to get more out of your points for taking the standard one. Unless you're trying to run a pure Bull Centaur army, at which point you start worth taking him, because you can get more commands that you'll be able to put on the Bull Centaurs to sort of make them dish out more pain and more damage.
Exactly. I always say the Bull Centaurs may not be the best thing this army has to offer points-wise. However, I mean, I can't say this, obviously, for sure, but if you rock up to your normal tournament and you take only Bull Centaurs, it's a good chance you might be the only one doing that. Like, you know, it is cool. You've got your own army. And not loads of people will be taking this guy. So what I'm trying to say is, in a way, it's cool to be different.
Definitely.
And he looks great. I mean, if I was fighting against this thing, I'd probably try to kill it as quickly as possible, which is probably the wrong thing to do, just because it looks like it's going to cause me a lot of pain. But so yeah, that's him. And then the Next one I want to talk about is the the main name character. I think he looks awesome before we talk about his rules, I think.
Yeah, he's absolutely, in my opinion, probably the best model for the army. That huge winged bull that he rides is just absolutely gorgeous. And he's got him himself. He looks in conjunction with the rest of the army. He looks like a lot of the other Chaos Dwarfs, but he still has little nods back to the original ones. His helmet is a little bigger. It sort of looks a little bit more like the old top hat. It works really nicely in conjunction with everything that he sort of is being fielded with. So yeah.
And then on the table.
He's 320 points.
So by far the most expensive thing in the army.
Yeah, definitely. He is a lot of a points investment, but you're going to get so much more out of him. He is another spellcaster as well, so it actually allows you to have more than just one spellcaster or however many Demon Smiths you're taking. And he just puts out a lot of attacks. He's got 13 wounds, and he's going to he's got a ranged attack of 16 inches with 6 attacks, 4+ to hit, 4+ to wound, and 1 damage. And then in combat, he's getting 6 attacks again, at varying different to hits to wounds, all with rends and damage.
Yeah, he's not the biggest killer in combat, but he's not bad.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, compared to sort of, if you take it to another army like Slaves of Darkness with Archeon, then it's no way he's going to be comparing up to that. But for this army, he's certainly
exactly
that's a big hitter.
And he's got a fair few abilities.
I think he's got a fair few abilities, but I think mostly the reason someone's going to field this is because they want that model on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. Yeah, it feels like the same for the Executioner. It's why you would take him. But and we all say like, oh, well, maybe not going to get the most of your points and all that, and there's other things you could take, and that is true. But at the end of the day, I mean, I certainly, and I know most people, do the hobby to collect awesome models. And if you really want to buy this model, but you're not going to buy it because you've heard, like even us talking about this video, someone else go, oh, well, maybe he's not the best for my points, and I should, invest my money into buying something that I'm going to use more in the games. Use this guy. If you're taking Chaos Dwarfs, like I've already talked about, you're playing different enough. Why not take an awesome model? And if you've played enough games with it, you will find ways to make it work.
Yeah, just take it to the next level, have the craziest model you can, and have fun with what you're putting on the field, because everyone's going to come around and look, because you're fielding something completely different.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like that's when I fought against Ben Curry. Like I said, he explained how the army worked to me perfectly, but unfortunately, most of it went over my head because I was distracted with other things. However, the art I was sort of just stunned by. Hadn't even. It's not that I hadn't played Chaos Dwarfs at that point. Hadn't even seen Chaos Dwarfs outside the Forge World store, and you see them. And then he had this guy, and there's a picture here if you can see of what they've tagged us from Instagram onto the Forge World, and it's just awesome. If you saw my community post I posted earlier today, it had this guy on that post as the picture, and that one was painted by Ben Curry. Just that massive red wing armoured bull it's awesome. It's like I have Archeon. How many times have I fielded him? Probably twice, and I've had him for about 3 years. But he's awesome.
Yeah, but it's one of those, just you love building, you love painting, and it's one of those you can have on a shelf and go, that's just a fantastic model.
Yeah, and for me, this is, like I said, with the Executioner as well, and the Bull Centaurs, for me, this is another model that draws me to the army. Because where it's like the Fire Glaives look cool, but it's these big sort of monstrous units that do that you look and go, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then so what are our sort of thoughts to this guy? Like I know we sort of just talked about maybe it's not worth points. Is that a fair conclusion you would say, or?
I don't know. I'm gonna take him in my army. Whether I'm doing that slightly blinkered just because I love the model, I don't know. I think he's fantastic for having an extra wizard. A wizard, you can. He's certainly going to be able to deal out damage. He's going to be a bit tanky. And again, I think it's going to be another one of those where it's a big model and people are going to focus on that before they look at other things. You know, they'll be heading towards trying to take out, Drazov and going to get shot to pieces by the fire glaives and the magma cannons, or I can charge down and distract them with that while I'm trying to move my magma cannons somewhere else. I think it's one of those that he himself is a very good lord and he'll be very useful. He'll be good in combat. He can shoot up to 60 inches. He has magic. He's a good, well-rounded character to have. But I think he's also going to be useful sort of on a utility side. So here's a lot of points. You are investing a fair bit into him, but I'm not sure if I'd say he is too many. But I'm also saying, I'm not going to say you're going to get the most. It's not one of those where you go, he's a must include because you're getting so much for his points. So, I don't know. It's sort of a real flip of the coin down to sort of what a person personally feels about him and whether they feel that they'd want to take him or not. Because for myself, I'm definitely going to run him in my force.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say it's definitely more of a sort of distraction piece as well, like I say, for enemy artillery. Going along those lines, I mean, I'm definitely going to try and kill this thing first, no matter how actual good it is.
No, I don't know. I'd say if you were looking for your best points value out of the HQs, I'd say you're going to definitely want to take a Demon Smith. The Castle and the Battle Standard, which we've not actually really talked about, are very cheap and very useful HQs. And if you're looking for a slightly bigger but still quite cheap good HQ to take, then I'd say possibly the Bull Centaur Turok. Because if you're looking at trying to build it up as a fairly cheap force, both in points and cost, you're going to get more out of him than you are, say, out of the Executioner or Drazov, just because he can still do most of the things that the Executioner can. You're going to get a good amount of damage out of him, but you're leaving yourself a bit more points to play around with more units for your force.
Yeah, I think that's a fair sort of summary for him. And like I say, he's an awesome model, so if you're thinking about getting him, if there's a will, there's a way, essentially, to try and make him work in the army. So that's sort of like the overall of the models and stuff. We've gone into some of the rules as well. So we've talked plenty about the positives of the army. What would you say its main weaknesses are?
I'd say there's a couple of things. You've got a bit of weakness in magic, because you just don't have that much versatility in different kind of spellcasters you can take. You have Drazov, who is a spellcaster, and then you've got the Demon Smiths, and they don't have access to a huge number of spells that you can take. So you're not really going to be bringing out a lot of spellcasters who can sort of counter, particularly if you're going up against a particularly heavy magic force. You're not going to be able to do a lot of denying, a lot of stopping of that. So I think that it certainly has a weakness to magic as an army. Other than that, unless you're taking Bull Centaurs, I am going to say it's not the fastest moving army. It's certainly one of those that, I mean, Age of Sigmar is quite a lot about sort of taking and holding objectives. And whilst if you can get to the objective, you will probably hold it, you're not always going to be the fastest person to get there. So I could see that being a problem with them.
Has it got any teleporting shenanigans, or does it need things like the Soul Screen Bridge, that sort of stuff?
You'd have to take sort of the bridges and stuff. There isn't a teleporting ability that they have themselves.
But there is a way. Like, remember Forbidden Power with those sort of spells. You can, the guy on his boat. There are ways if you need to. You have got it, but not inherently in the army. But like I say, a positive from a negative. Yeah, it is. Age of Sigmar is a movement game, so you do need to make this movement. And especially if you're playing something like Star Strike or Shift an Objective, and you suddenly need to get to the other side of the battlefield that you couldn't prepare for, you are going to struggle. But in the other cases, about if you're more at a certain point in the game, more worrying about just hitting the enemy as hard as you can sit back and shoot with the army. Like we said, that's a strength of it.
If you've got a unit of the Iron Sworn sat on an objective, they're going to have a hard time trying to shift that unit off of that objective if they're trying to come in. So they are very good at holding the objective. I could certainly see getting to the objectives being rather difficult sometimes, just because they don't have the best amount of speed when trying to move around.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And sorry, what were you going to say?
The other weakness I'd say was with the fact that they're not going to have an updating battle tome and stuff that we touched on earlier. Like that would be in some regards a weakness, because they're not going to shift with the meta. Being in the Warhammer Legends collection is certainly going to affect them in the regard that they're not, if there's a problem that you can see with them now, that's not going to be improved on later unless the meta shifts in a way that is good. They're not going to adapt and change the force for that to be better, to fit a meta.
No, that is, but I think, and that sort of goes into a weakness I'm going to talk about for them, is it comes in, it shouldn't come too much as a surprise. They are a Forge World army. Financially, they're going to be expensive.
Definitely.
It's something you can't deny. Like if you're someone who likes to do like I like to have 6 armies / projects on the go. Maybe this army isn't quite for you. Obviously, we all have different jobs and all that sort of thing, so it depends what you're like. But you are sort of talking about, like we were saying about Fireglaves. How many of those would you sort of have in a 2,000 point list? You're thinking?
My 2,000 point list, I have 40.
40
that is planned out. And 40 of them and 40 of the Iron Sworn.
And 40 of the Iron Sworn.
Yeah.
So it's £45 for 10 of them for each. So you can see, obviously, if you save up the money, you can do it over time. But it is just one of those. Do be prepared. Build up the army slowly. Don't all rush and do it at once. Is there any other tips you can say about it?
I'd definitely say, as you said, do not rush in and buy the whole force at once. They do sort of inverted commas start collecting boxes, if you will. So they would possibly save up, and that would be a good starting point. So they do too. No.
So they're just
it's a better way of, if you're sort of wanting to start off, then I'd possibly say save up, get one of those as a starting point, and then build from there slowly. So you've got a little base, so you can look at going, all right, I have that, I've done that. Next, I want to add that. And you feel slightly better, I found personally. So I have the Blackshard Warhost one, which you get 20 Iron Sworn and 20 Fireglaves.
Yes,
and
a command set.
A command squad for 170, which it's sort of English pounds. It is a lot. You're spending a lot of money on getting those, but you have a good little base. So whilst it's not a savings like you do in the other start collecting boxes, it is a better way, I feel, of if you just put a little aside as you sort of go along, and then you get that, then you feel better. So you've got a good little base to work from, and you can buy a bit slowly down the line to add to it. But yeah, definitely don't rush in and buy tons. Don't buy the whole army in one, because it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. So let's only say like the Blackshard Warhost, you're not actually you're not getting a discount at all, but it is sort of just like a nice starting block as a bundle. Let's say you had, I don't know, £100 to start with. What would you think would be your first units to buy?
I'd say £100. You're probably going to want to get yourselves 10 Iron Sworn and 10 Fireglaves if you wanted to go down the infantry base route. That is, if you wanted to go down the Bull Centaurs, then get a TAUR and get some Bull Centaurs to go with it. But if you're just starting with 100 for just infantry, I'd get some Iron Sworn, some Fireglaves, and get yourself one of the command ones. Don't stick the commanders in the actual units. Run it as a castle at the battle standard, and you're going to have a good sort of little starting point where you're able to go, okay, I've spent this, and I have 2 units of 10 and two HQs, and you can build from that there. I'd say would probably be your best starting point really on that.
Cool, nice. And right then, so that pretty much brings us to the end of the video. What are your overall thoughts of the army then?
I mean, I love them just because of how different they are. They're an underrated chaos force that if you're going to turn up to even just your local store for the first time or go into a tournament, people are always going to look at them because they don't see them very often. And because of that, they are going to underestimate certain aspects of your army, and they're sort of just a wonderful dynamic army because they do have the artillery, they have their cavalry, they have a good baseline infantry. It's very hard. Like, they do have their weaknesses, but they have a lot of strengths in how to build up the army and change it to. With only changing a few units, you've instantly changed how the whole army's working. It can be very easy to change up depending on what you're facing against. So I want to take more fast moving, so I'll take Pebble Centaurs, or I want to sit back and chip them away, so I'll take more artillery or whatnot. It's very easy to change them if you have a good solid base. I'd say all in all, Chaos Dwarfs are an exciting new route for a Chaos player who's looking for a new flavor to change up how they're facing other people and have something new for everyone around them as well as themselves to be looking at and playing with. Exactly. And against.
And I think that's it. It's a different army. If you do play it, you know, more than likely, I can't say for every store, but more than likely you will be the one guy who plays it in your store, your local gamer club, and it's an army that, like I say, when I fought against, it's just a pleasure to see the models because you really do. So you'll be doing everyone else a favour in that, right? But right then, well, that brings us to the end of the video. So Luke, I want to say thank you very much for coming on. Like we do these screen records, they are effectively like a live video, so we can't edit them. So I want to say well done, Luke, as well. Didn't slip up at all. And thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
No worries at all. Maybe see you in a later video, Luke, depending on what armies come up next. Right, guys, so if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. If you've got any more questions, please put them on the comments of this video, and I'll be happy to answer them best I can, and maybe Luke will see them and he might be able to answer as well.
I'll keep an eye out.
Fantastic, Luke. And like most things, if you're just thinking about doing the army, you really just do it. We all love to collect as many armies as possible. Right then, so I'm going to say a farewell to you, Luke. Thank you very much for your help. Thank you everyone for watching this. Thank you to all my patrons as well. You do an amazing job and really help me produce as much content as possible. And so guys, thank you very much for watching, and remember, until next time, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.